So, this is a video I've wanted to make for some time. I wanted to try to create the ultimate gripper video, if you will, for anyone who's new to the sport or new to grippers or someone who just wants to learn more. Odds are there's something in this video that you don't know about them. If you do know everything that I go over in this video, or you know more than I do, then why were you searching for this video, is my question to you. Okay, so let's get started. What are grippers? Well, they are these things. They have a spring glued or pinned to handles, and depending on the thickness of the spring, the wire, if you will, determines the difficulty, how much it takes to touch the handles together. Now there's other factors that go into making a gripper difficult. We'll go over those shortly, but this is the basic idea, is that we're working against this spring to touch the inside of these handles together. Alright, so there's lots of different types of grippers out there. We'll go through all of them, but I think we should focus on the anatomy of the gripper first. So I have some stuff over here that can make this a lot easier to understand. Here's a spring that has not been attached to any handles. These springs are made for lots of reasons, mostly industrial, mechanical, engineering type stuff. They're not just made for us to squeeze and stroke our egos. So this spring is really thick. This one would rate about the same as a number 4. So, but I wanted to show you this just so you can see what they look like without the handles. So I have a very special gripper here. This is an adjustable one made by PowerWorks, who I will reference many times throughout this video. I get all my gripper stuff from him. Matt Cannon's a good guy. He's probably the foremost leader in grippers right now. And standard grippers, his brand, are pretty much the best ones on the market. So these are fitted with these aluminum sleeves that fit in these holes. Now the reason they're in these sleeves is because I can take a smaller one. See how this one's a little bit smaller? It'll fit in the same holes. So that's what these sleeves are for. These sleeves are machined to the thickness of the different springs, and they'll fit in here, and then I can switch springs on the fly as I want in my training. Very flexible, very helpful. So the handles go on. Now this one's unique because it's adjustable. Most of the grippers you're going to run into, they're fixed, meaning the handles aren't supposed to come off. So they're secured either by pins that are hammered in through holes that are drilled through the handle to lock the spring in place inside the handles, but most manufacturers glue theirs because glue is cheaper, requires less labor, and does a pretty good job. Ironmind glues all of theirs, and I haven't had a handle pop off an Ironmind gripper ever. Okay, so this gripper, now that I've put it together, see these screws? On a fixed gripper, these would be pins, but these are screws that come out. So I use this Allen key to take it apart. Now, I talked about how the diameter of the spring determines how hard it is to close. That's true, but there's other factors involved as well. So the great thing about this adjustable gripper is that I can loosen these up, and I can change the mounting height. So if you look closely, you'll see that there's these little indentations here, here, and here. Those are different mount points, and the gripper's been rated at those different points, and I'll talk about ratings in a minute. But basically, the higher the mount, the easier the gripper is going to be. If the handles are mounted flush, it's about as difficult as it's going to be to close the spring. But now, see how this sticks up a little higher? This is a little wider because it's lower. This actually makes the gripper easier. Now, If the gripper was this wide, but it was flush mounted, it'd be incredibly difficult. And I'll go over spread width here shortly. But basically, mount height is one factor to determine the difficulty of a gripper. All right, so now spread. Spread is I wouldn't say it's the most important, but it's the easiest to measure. It's kind of difficult to measure the mount height. There's multiple ways to do it, so not a lot of people know about the mount height being a factor. If you look at your grippers, let me grab a couple here. So if I take this ruler and I do the bottom of the spring to the top of the handle, that tells me the mount height. If I measure the handles, the inside of the handle, the other side of the inside of the handle, that tells me the spread width. So a wide gripper usually is harder to close than a narrower one. That's because there's more range of motion that you have to cover. So, example here, these two grippers have the same rating of 148 pounds. This is an Ironmind number 3, this is GHP 7. This Ironmind gripper is 3 inches between the inside of the handles. This GHP 7 is 3 1/4 inch. This is going to be a harder gripper than this one. Even though they're rated the same, this one's harder because the spread is wider. If the mounting height was really high on this, it would rate lower. Just the way it is. I'm not an engineer, but enough of these have been done that that's how it works. So that's why the mounting height is pretty important. Yeah, so GHP grippers are typically wider on average than Ironmind or standard, but GHP is no longer being manufactured, so if you have some, hold on to them. They're like gold. Or you could sell it and make some money, whatever. So yeah, that's more about the spread between the handles. We talked about the mount height and the thickness of the spring. So one thing I'll show you just to show extremes. This is an Ironmind guide. It rates 28 RGC or 28 pounds to touch the handles together. This is a GHP 10, rates 267. It's one of the, there's grippers that rate higher than this, but this is one that a human could probably close any higher than this. It's doubtful. But I wanted to show you the difference in the springs. 28 pounds, 267 pounds. Big difference, right? So, spring thickness or diameter, mounting height, handle spread. All factors in what makes a gripper difficult. I can show you an extreme example of mount height as well. So this is a Powerball Hulk. Look how high that's mounted. That's almost hold on. It's 3/8 of an inch. So it's very noticeable once it's pointed out compared to this. See how much further the handles are down on this one? Cool. Okay, I think this is probably a good time to talk about the rating system. So, like I showed you, this Ironmind number 3 is rated 148. That means 148 pounds to touch the handles together. So the way this is done, I'll tell you why there's holes drilled in this in a second. The gripper is put into a apparatus, and one handle is fixed in place. The other handle has weight strapped to it, and the strap is put here on this top handle, weight's added to the strap, and the gripper closes as weight is added. Once the handles touch, that's the rating. It's kind of a standardized way to tell how strong a gripper is, because like if you buy these from Ironmind, it says something like it's 280 pounds, but they don't tell you how or why they came to that number. Like this Powerball Hulk says it's 400 pounds, but there's no, like, they don't tell you how they came up with that number. And something we'll get into later, this Grip Genie 7 also has a 400-pound spring. These are the same spring, even though they're different manufacturers. They use the same springs. We'll talk more about that later. Yeah, so the rating system. So we call it RGC, but you could also just call it pounds. So if someone says they have a 148 RGC gripper, what they mean is their gripper's rated that it's closed at 148 pounds. Imagine if you were trying to do bench press and you didn't know how much weight was on the bar, and you just bought different bars, and there was a bench press 1 and a bench press 2 and a bench press 3, and everyone's like, oh yeah, I can do the bench press 2, I'm working on the 3, but I don't really know how to train because I don't know how much weight is on it, so I just keep doing the 2, and then maybe one day I'll get the 3. Imagine trying to train like that. Well, that's how grippers work until the RGC system came to be. So if you have grippers, I suggest getting them rated, and Canon PowerWorks in the United States is the best place to get them rated. I'm not sure about international ratings. I'll find some information. I'll put links in the description of the video. So for international people, there might be some resources that you can use to get your grippers rated. It probably won't be the same as Canon because every way is going to be different of how people measure. There's too many variables involved for it to be exact between individuals who are rating grippers. Forgot to mention something about the rating system. So Canon PowerWorks, who rates grippers, he has kept the data of all the grippers that he's rated over the last like 12 years, I think. And he's compiled averages and the mode of like the gripper that came in at the rating the most, and he's compiled all that into a chart on his website. I'm going to put a link to the website in the description so you can go and check out what the average rating for a gripper is. So even though your grippers may not be rated, you might have an idea of what your gripper, the range that it could be in. So you at least have some idea of how strong the gripper is. So make sure you check that out. And you really should get your grippers rated if you're going to be serious about training them, because like I said, lifting weights without knowing how much you're lifting makes it really hard to progress and program training to be optimal and efficient. All right, so we talked about how grippers are put together, the different factors that determine their difficulty, how we rate them to know how much weight we're working with so we can program training. And we've also talked about how there's different manufacturers and differences between them. So I think we can jump into now the differences between all the different manufacturers, and then we can tell you how to determine which ones might be best for you. So the gold standard of grippers, their words, not mine, is Ironmind. So this is an Ironmind 3. Everyone who's done grip or in grip knows what someone means when they say they can close a 3. 3 is kind of like the dividing line between average people and above average people. I think there's 300 people to date who've closed a number 3 from a credit card set, which I'll tell you more about in a minute. I'm one of those people. There's a 3.5 and there's also a 4. 4 is the highest that Ironmind goes to, and we'll talk more about what that means later in the video. Another manufacturer is very popular, but as I said earlier, they're no longer manufacturing grippers, is GHP. Gillingham High Performance. Wade Gillingham, a very accomplished strength athlete, started making these. These are my favorite grippers because they're wider in the spread, and they're just harder. And if you can close a GHP at any given RGC, you can close any gripper at that RGC. So these are great. If you have some, hold on to them. Or like I said, you can sell them for a bunch of money right now, but I think there's more value in holding on to something like this because these are very special, high quality unique grippers that have a lot of value in making you a stronger grip athlete. We have also standard grippers by Canon PowerWorks, who I said I'll talk a lot about in the video here. So you see a gripper with, oh come on, SG, that means standard grippers, and then Canon rates his with different metals from the periodic table. GHP uses numbers from 1 to 10, Ironmind goes from 1 to 4, standard uses, there's a bunch, it's from like zinc to soon to be chromium. Chromium is a new level. It's going to be stronger than or harder than the 4, Ironmind 4. Looking forward to those being produced. This is a tungsten, hence the W. This isn't made just for me, you know, old W. This is a 200 RGC tungsten, which is pretty rare. Not many, I think there's only been 2 or 3 rate 200, so I was lucky to get a hold of one of these. The handles are fixed with these pins. I can't take these out. These aren't the screws like I was showing you earlier. So standard are probably the best grippers in the game right now, now that GHP's out of business. Matt is really innovative in his approach to these, and he really cares about the sport. He's a nice guy, and like I said, he cares a lot about the sport. He also now runs the grip board, which some of you may have heard of. If you haven't joined, I suggest you do. Lots of good information on there, lots of great people on there, lots of fun topics, great learning resource, and a very good source of for entertainment sometimes. I'm a moderator there, so join up, say hi, and be happy to answer any questions on there, or here on YouTube, or on my Instagram. Okay, other gripper manufacturers. Arguably the most popular right now is going to be Grip Genie. They have very good marketing. Juji Mufu does a lot with them. They are super nice people. I met them at the Arnold Classic. They were kind enough to send me this new Grip Genie 7. I haven't tried to close it yet. I will soon. This is a beefy gripper. It's over 200 RGC. It's probably like 210. I don't think I can close it now. One day I will. So Grip Genie 7. They go from 1 to 7 now. It was 1 to 6. They're kind of known for having colorful handles. If it gets you enthusiastic about training to have colorful grippers, hell yeah, let's do it. I support them. I think they're great. A lot of people will talk shit on these grippers. It's not justified. All grippers have their place in someone's training, and you should use what excites you and gets you pumped up to train. Another manufacturer out there, this is Powerball. So as I said earlier, this spring on this Powerball and this Grip Genie, they're the same. These springs are manufactured in China. Any gripper that has a spring that goes in 50-pound increments, they're manufactured by the same people. They just have different handles, maybe different knurling, different colors, different diameters. But at the end of the day, it's the same spring from the same manufacturer. So when you're looking at Grip Genie, Powerball, Gripzilla, I think even Heavy Grips uses the same ones. Any of the 50-pound increment grippers, they're all the same spring. If you were going to pick one to support, I'd say Grip Genie, just because they seem to care most about the grip community and getting people pumped up about training their grip and just being active and strong overall. And they've been very kind to me, so I will pick them as the best manufacturer of the 50-pound springs. Okay, there's also, I guess, there's Gripzilla. They use the same springs. You can see this one, it says 350. Yeah, so Gripzilla goes for like 1 to 5. I think they sent me this one. They don't manufacture for like mass produce the 350-pound. This one rated 195, which is pretty crazy for this spring. This spring averages more around 170. But you know, it's the same spring, but the colors of the handles get people's attention. And if that's your thing and it gets you training, that's cool. I'm not going to bash anybody. So I forgot to mention one thing about the 50-pound increment grippers like Grip Genie, Gripzilla, etc. The spreads on these is going to be narrower than Ironmind and GHP and Standard and Tedding. The reason for that is they all use the same spring, as I talked about, the 50-pound increment. And as I showed you earlier, a gripper of equal RGC but a narrower spread will be easier to close than one with a wider spread. So while training with a narrower gripper won't necessarily make you, it's not the optimal way of training, but if you're limited by hand size, those grippers could be very helpful for you because the narrower spread is easier for your hand and your fingers to wrap around. So if you have a smaller hand, Grip Genie might be something that you want to explore and try out. Might be easier for you than Ironmind or GHP or Standard. So wanted to make sure I called that out. All right. There's other gripper manufacturers out there, but like I said, if they're in 50-pound increments, they all use the same springs. There's some other grippers out there. They're not produced anymore, but this is a Tedding Super Elite. These are made by Warren Tedding. Some are made by his sons. The handle's just simply stamped. Come on. Sorry, my light is very bright. SE. I don't know if you, yeah, there we go. SE, meaning Super Elite. Very good knurling. The bevels are pretty. This is a beefy gripper. It's pinned. So this is about as good as it gets. Standard is very similar to these. Teddings are rare. You're going to pay a lot of money for these. But if you're a collector, it's worth it. I'm not really so much a collector of these, but I wanted to have one Tedding in my collection of them, and I think this is a good one to have. This is a very beefy Super Elite. All right. There's too many manufacturers to name, so I'm just going to stop there. So, we've talked about what grippers are, how they're made, what makes them difficult, what makes them different from each other, the different manufacturers, the rating system. Now we should talk about how to modify them in ways that are cool and helpful and ways that are really fucking shitty. All right? Let's start with the really fucking shitty way. You may have seen in my other videos this thing, which is a bastard 3.5 that I did some work on to prove how easy it is to manipulate one of these into tricking people that you're much stronger than you really are, which was done in response to a certain individual from a certain European country that I don't really want to talk about or give him any more attention than he already got. But I want to show you something here. So this is the same gripper. If we look at the handle spread, it's well over 3 inches. There. About 3 inches. Okay? Now watch what happens when I close it. Very interesting. Now it's just over 2 inches. What happened? This spring has been blowtorched, and I've cleaned it up and repolished it so you can't see the oxidation from the flames that were used. I got this red hot to where it almost melted, which significantly weakens the spring, but as you see, it also loses its torsion. Now, I can pull this gripper apart, make it wide again, but every time I close it, it's never going to open back up all the way to this width because of the heat that took the torsion out of the spring. This is not cool. Do not do this. You will be easily found out and shamed and not wanted in our community. So stop. Don't do it. All right. Now, cool ways to modify your grippers. Chokers. So my number 3 has these holes in it. These holes are drilled out and they're tapped to take choker hardware, which is this stuff here. Now, What's cool about this is I can turn this thumb screw and I can set the width of the gripper. Why do I want to do this? Well, if I want to work on this 197 standard tungsten, and I just want to focus on my closing power, the final, 20 millimeters in, this choker lets me do that, and then I don't have to try to do the setting, which I'm going to show in a moment. I don't have to try to set it to here. It's already there, and then I can just do my best to use my closing power. I'm not even going to try it right now because I'm not warmed up, but I'll use two hands to show you the motion. See? Yeah, so I can train different widths without having to do the setting, and I can just focus on the closing power. It's a really good tool. You don't have to have this to do it. You can also put your gripper in a vise, turn the vise until the handles are at the width you want. Then you can put a hose clamp over the top, tighten the hose clamp up until it holds it at this width, the width that you want. So if you don't want to spend the money to get your handles drilled out and buy these parts, you can use the hose clamp thing. It's going to ruin your knurling, so if you care about how your grippers look, that might not be something you want to do, but I don't care. But this is a lot easier, saves me a lot of time, and I can remove it at any time, and I can just use the gripper like a regular gripper. So that's choked hardware. Really powerful training tool. Other ways. Got lots of parts here. Other ways to modify your grippers. You can file the handles. So the reason why you'd want to file a handle, and I have a filed handle for my adjustable gripper here, it increases the width between the handles. So if you can close a gripper that's filed at a certain RGC, a gripper of equal RGC but not filed will be much easier because you're not having to account for this extra 5 millimeters or so that's created by the filing. Canon PowerWorks does the filing. You can also look up videos on how to file it yourself. But this is a really good training tool. You're going to ruin a gripper by filing it. You can never put it back, but they're really handy. And if you're really struggling with closing power and you don't have a choked gripper, file a gripper down that you can already close, but it's kind of tough, and then go back to work on that gripper. It'll increase your strength pretty significantly, and then you might be able to break a plateau with it. This gripper is 171. I'm not going to try to close it because I'm not warm. So actually, there's a problem with this handle. I've got to clean up the inside a little bit. It's not going to go over my my spring. So I'll need to clean this up and try to do the video later. But I think you get the idea that accounting for this extra width is going to be a little bit harder, so I don't think I need to show it exactly. But that's the benefit of a filed gripper. There's plenty of videos on YouTube of people using them, so you can easily find a video. Just search filed gripper on YouTube. Okay. So another way to modify your gripper but not messing it up or ruining it in any way is to use this. It's called the bumper, made by Canon PowerWorks. Told you I was going to talk about them a lot in this video. So you put this inside of the spring and you turn it until you can't really pull it. Okay. Once it's in there where you can't pull it without moving it, then every time you turn it, it adds like a pound or a pound and a half to the gripper, which will make the gripper harder, and you can get a little more life out of a gripper that maybe was too easy for you. So bumper's really cool, and it doesn't modify your gripper in any permanent way. It comes right out, and your gripper's just like it was before you put it in. Canon PowerWorks makes these, like I said. This is a really handy tool. Everybody should have one. All right. I think that's the ins and outs of grippers. Let's talk about how we close them. So I'll go back to the number 2 here because I'm not warmed up. So you might see, actually let me back up. So when we first all encounter these for the first time, what do? We pick it up, we put it in our hand, and we just squeeze it. Okay? And if we can't close it, we're like, wow, that's hard, and then we never do it again. But then we might watch a video on the internet, or one of our really strong friends might have some of these, and we'll watch them, and they'll do this whole thing where they're like sizing it up. They use their other hand to start it, and then boom, they close it. And you wonder, well, why did he use 2 hands? Is that cheating? No. So that's called setting the gripper. There's a lot to be said if you can close a gripper with just one hand. That's called a TNS. Stood for table no set, but now some people say total no set. I just call it TNS. TNS means you don't use a free hand at all. You just pick the thing up without your free hand, close it. Okay? That's all TNS means. If you get the gripper and you just use your free hand to like get it in the right spot, but you don't really squeeze down with it, some people will say it's not a total no set. I don't really care. But when I do a TNS, I like to pick it up. I'll anchor it with my pinky here in the spot where I like to have the gripper, which I'll show you in detail in a moment. Then I just make sure that I've got it's anchored really nicely here in my palm. I get my 3 fingers up here ready and in position. Then when I feel it's secure, bring my pinky up, close. Cool. But that's not how you should really train with these. It's okay to set, it's okay to use 2 hands. So what I'm training for right now is to certify with Ironmind on the 3.5 by closing it from a credit card set. What does that mean? I'll show you. So the grippers used to come with one of these. I don't know when this stopped or when it started, but I remember when I bought my first grippers a long time ago, one of these came with it. Now you seem to only get them when you sign up for certification. Maybe if you order your grippers directly from Ironmind, they still send these. I don't know. But this is the same size as a credit card that is in your wallet. And what we have to do is we have to show that this fits between the handles before we close the gripper. So these are cool. You can use a credit card in your wallet. I like using this. This is a wooden one that a really nice guy named AJ from the Grip Board and the Grip community on Instagram. He made this for me, sent it to me. Super nice guy. This is really cool to train with. I like it a lot. It's really durable. It doesn't bend. The sides don't like get chipped away or rounded off like the credit card will. So this ensures that pretty much every time I'm doing the same width. So what we do is we'll set our gripper. And when I set it, I want to put this handle right here at this crease, this line in my palm. I want the gripper to be kind of back against the bony part of my thumb, and I'll use this thumb to hold it in place. I want the other handle to be like almost like bisecting my little finger, like right in the middle of my little finger. I'm going to press down, and I'm going to use these fingers to help these fingers on my closing hand get the gripper started. Okay. Then I just slowly open the gripper until the card fits between the handles. Then I close it. Bingo. So that's why we use 2 hands, because eventually you'll get to the point where, you know, maybe you can close the 0.5 or the 1 or the 1.5. Maybe you can close it with one hand and you don't need to set it. But eventually you're going to get to a point where you can't TNS the grippers, and that's when we need to start using a set. There's nothing wrong with using the 2 hands. So if you thought this was cheating, or whatever, pick up a number 3 or greater and try to close it with one hand. Try for 10 years. You'll never get it. So, but if you start setting, train smarter with your grippers, one day you can close the 3. So that's what setting is. So to certify with Ironmind, and I'll go over certification later, you want to use a credit card set with, again, the card has to be paused between the handles for a second or two, and then close. Okay? There's different set blocks out there. So for the old GHP challenge, I think the GHP certification is still up, but now that they're not making the grippers anymore, I figure it's not going to be too long before the certification stops or somebody else takes over. But the way the GHP certification would work is that you take a GHP gripper, you would show the level, you would measure with calipers the outside diameter of the spring, and you would measure the spread of the gripper just to show that the spring hadn't been swapped or manipulated in any way like I showed you a few minutes ago. We'll see if I can do this cold, but anyway, this is the GHP set block. It's 38 millimeters or 1.5 inches. So same thing, put the gripper in our sweet spot, anchor it with our thumb, get it ready, show that the block fits between the handles, close it. If you did that, you certified on the GHP 7, which is cool. GHP allowed for certification on the level 7 and up. Only one person in the world is certified on the 10. That's Mr. Myerscough. Very nice guy, super strong guy, the GOAT of grip. And I'm proud to say he is a friend of mine. So thank you, Carl, for all you've done for the sport and for me, and I'll talk more about you later in this video. All right, other set widths that you might encounter. A popular one at competition is 20 millimeter. So we'll set our gripper, show that the 20 millimeter block passes through, close. Why all these different widths? Well, the wider it is, the harder it is. Now, a lot of people have beef with Ironmind about the credit card because this can be limited. You can be limited by hand size on whether or not you're capable of doing this on a number 3. Ironmind says you're not. I've worked with enough people to say otherwise, but this isn't to quarrel with Ironmind. They're a great company. I've not had any problems with them. They've always been kind to me, so I'm not going to disparage them in any way. I just say that for some people, this is really hard based on hand size. As for me, it was pretty easy. Not trying to flex, just being honest here. Credit card's no problem for me because my hands are gigantic. Some people's aren't. So the reason why GHP uses the 38 millimeter block, I don't know for sure, but I gotta say, it was just to differentiate themselves from Ironmind and to make it a little more fair. And 38 millimeter is still hard. 20 millimeter lets you close a bigger gripper, but it also requires more setting strength. So you've got to be able to set the gripper down to 20 millimeter. If you can do that, then closing it from there is much easier than trying to close a gripper from 38 or higher. But you have to have the setting strength to get the gripper to parallel. And what I mean by parallel is, if I show you again here, if we look at the gripper, see, if I hold this block here and I take it out, the handles look like they're parallel. Here there's an angle, right? But here they're pretty much parallel. So 20 millimeters is the, where everyone assumes that it's parallel, right? So the gripper is much easier to close there if I can set it to there. So as far as training goes, and we'll talk about how to program training and stuff later, your training is going to be dependent on what your goals are. So if your goal is to certify on the 3, you want to be training on credit card, but you also want to be working on closing power, using a choked gripper or setting a gripper to parallel. You don't have to use the block. but your training needs to be tailored towards your goal. That's pretty obvious, but it's good to point out. Okay, so that is all about setting and set width. Oh, one detail. This is a tip I'll give away for free. Probably doesn't look like I do it because I have a bad habit of not doing it, and I'm strong enough now that I guess I don't have to. But one thing about setting, so put the gripper on the line in your palm, anchor it against the thumb back here. Now, you want to try to bring your thumb down and across. It gives you more leverage on the close. Feels weird at first. If you just come straight across like that, you don't get as much leverage. It feels good at first, but then you lose leverage at the bottom. So when you're trying to close, once you get it anchored and you go for it, you want to try to get your thumb down lower. See, mine likes to go up here because that's a bad habit. Try to get yours to go lower, toward the middle finger. Play around with that. See if you notice a difference. Okay, so we've talked about what grippers are, how they're built, what makes a gripper more difficult than others, different manufacturers, the rating system, how to set a gripper, why we set a gripper, how to modify our grippers, what's left. We can go into training. So I'm not going to go into crazy detail here because everyone's different and you're just going to have to do trial and error to find what works for you. But in my experience, and I've only been training these for about 1.5 years now, but I've trained them a lot. I've tried just about everything. My experience is that one way of training is not going to last forever. You're going to have to change it up over time. And I've struggled with that because I've gotten in a really good groove where I was doing like, just heavy singles, like 5 or 6 reps in a workout. That worked great for me for like 6 months, and then started not working so great. And then I found, okay, I just got to go back to doing some volume, much like weight training in general. But doing higher volume wasn't really doing much for me either, so I had to kind of go medium volume. And you just have to play around with things once you start to stagnate and slow down. You have to play around with how many reps you're doing, the number of sets, how much you're warming up, the set width. There's a lot of factors. It's very complicated and it gets very frustrating, and this is why a lot of people don't stick with grippers for a long time. But you just have to be consistent and you have to try. And you're going to have to try things for like 2 or 3 weeks before you can determine whether or not they're working for you. And you might end up wasting some time, but really in the long run, it's not wasted time because you're learning how your body responds to these things. So stick with it. Don't stop. Be consistent. I had a run of 2 or 3 months of horrible training, and now I'm kind of back in the groove of what works for me. And, I've made multiple videos showing different ways of how to train. And it's not that the way that I used to train was wrong. It's just that I have evolved as a grip athlete. And as I've gotten stronger, my body requires more stimulus, or I just need a change of pace. I can't really explain why, but things just change, and you have to adapt. If you keep trying to do the same thing over and over, you're going to get frustrated, you're going to quit. Maybe you'll come back to grippers after 6 months, and what was working before will work again, but then you'll get back to the point that you were 6 months ago, and it might stop, or you might break through the plateau, but then it took you 6 months of doing nothing just to come back to bust through a plateau that, a month of troubleshooting would have fixed. So consistency is the most important thing in your training. Actually, that's wrong. That's a lie. I lied. The most important aspect of training grippers is recovery. Man, that was a beautiful segue. So recovery. I can only train grippers at most like every 4 days. And that's if I didn't go super hard on anything else in the gym. If I'm training hard in the gym, like I'm doing squat right now, in my pinch grip, I'm lucky to get every 5 days with grippers. And it sucks because the hardest thing about grippers is putting them down and staying away from them. Because you can take them anywhere. They don't take up much space. They're always around. And if you just see it on the laying on the table, you can't not walk over and grab it and try to squeeze it. So you've got to develop that discipline to stay away, let your body recover, because these are very intensive on your nervous system. And also, pain in the thumb and the forearm, it's real with these things. And if you overtrain on them, it sucks because you feel like you're crippled for like 3 days. So trust me, just take the time to recover, find other things to do in the gym, find other ways to train that occupy your mind. That way you don't think about grippers all the time. And you'll see that you can stay consistent. And then you can really look forward to the training. So after 5 days, man, I'm chomping at the bit to get my hands on them. And I have a great time. I have a great session. I go hard. I'm focused. All I'm thinking about is touching the handles. And it's because I'm allowing my body to recover and I'm taking that time between them. So grippers are always fresh. They're never boring for me. All right, so recovery, how to train. Let me go into more detail about how to train, actually. I'll give you a little more information. So I talked about how I used to do heavy singles. Then I went to like trying to do like 5 sets of 5 on a weaker gripper. That was okay, but it wasn't giving me enough stimulus in the closing power. So what is working for me now is triples and doubles. Building up to a top set where I do one really heavy single on a gold gripper. Not the gold gripper, but a gold gripper that's close to my max. A sub-max top set. Where I'll warm up, and I warm up with my guide, my trainer, my number one. I do like 10 credit card set reps with my 1, then I do 5 with the 2, then I do 3 with the 2.5. Then after that, I go after the big gripper. And then after that, I do some back down sets depending on how I'm feeling for doubles and triples after the big sub-maximal try. That's what's working for me now. I don't know how long it's going to last, but I know when that stops working, I can go back to trying heavy singles, or I can try doing heavy or higher volume. Maybe the 5x5 will work at that point. It takes some troubleshooting, and it might take some time away. You might need to take a week or 2 off and not train them at all, then come back and try to figure out what's going on. I'm not going to go into too much more detail about training because that could be an hours long video, and no, we're not going to do that. So, all right, grippers, anatomy of grippers, how to modify grippers, how to set grippers, how to train grippers, how to recover, more recovery tips. So you can use like dexterity balls. Like these, they come in different sizes. Some of them, they're like, I forget what they're called. They're like the Chinese ones. They come in a little box with like dragons and shit on it, and they make noise. Like there's a thing inside, and the bells kind of chime as you spin them around in your hands like this. This is really good active recovery. You can go forwards or backwards. Makes you much more dexterous, going both ways like that. These are heavy too. These are cool. I got these from Barrel Strength Systems. These are the Chinese ones I was talking about. See? They're smaller, so I can go faster. So these are cool. I use these a lot. The old extensor band. Multiple ways to do these. You can do them wide like that, or you can keep your fingers together like that. You can extend your fingers and you can move your wrist around. You know, there's lots of ways to use these. You can go really light and you can do a ton of reps. You can get good blood flow and a good pump in your forearm, which is good for recovery. You can also use the really heavy ones and build good strength in the extensors, which is an important part of grip. We do a lot of crushing, but we also need to work on the extensors and the flexors as well as the extensors. Balance things out. And there's a million ways you can train with the extensor bands. I'm not going to go into crazy detail on them because we could talk about it for a long time. There's lots of good information out there. You can also contact me for coaching information. I can walk you through everything you need to know about extensors and how to train them to balance out your crushing strength. There's also the rice bucket, so you can get a bucket of rice or beans and you can just kind of like extend and squeeze in the rice, and it's enough resistance to create a pump, but it's not so much that you're exerting strength. That's good for recovery. Basically, the idea for recovery is just to get a lot of blood flow into the fingers and the hand, because it's very bony, lots of ligaments and tendons, not a whole lot of soft tissue like muscles. So the blood flow is kind of limited in some areas. So the more blood flow you can drive into the hand and the forearm, the better. What else? I feel like that's pretty extensive. There we can talk about. We can talk about how to kind of maintain your grippers. Buy this stuff, 3-in-1 oil. You put a little bit of oil on, where'd my gripper go? Here we go. So you just put a little bit of oil on the coils of the spring. Maybe before that, if it's really dirty, you take a nylon brush, brush all the crap off of it. If it's you know, pretty rusty, once the oil's on it, maybe you can use like a steel bristled brush, get the rust off of it, shine it up, then take a paper towel or a rag and just wipe off the excess oil. Squeeze the gripper a couple times to get the oil, you know, in between the coils, and that's a good way to maintain your grippers, to make sure that they don't rust or seize up on you. And if they do that, they're going to be harder to close, and it might not make training as fun as it was. You can buy that oil or these brushes anywhere. It's not a special tool. There's not a gripper specific oil. It's not that detailed. So yeah, that's how we would care for our grippers. I think that's it for the technical details of these things. Some training tips: use chalk. I like spider chalk, but there's lots of different brands out there. They're all inferior to spider chalk in my opinion. I also like Friction Labs, but Spider Chalk sent me free chalk and I love it, so I'm going to rep them for the rest of my life. Thanks, Spider Chalk. So yeah, use chalk. Make sure that you recover. Make sure you care for your hands. I have a lot of nasty calluses and cuts and things, so what I like to do, I'll take a nail file or a nail file, and I'll file my calluses down, not all the way, just file them smooth, and then make sure to use like a good moisturizer or lotion on your hands. Hands that are moisturized, the skin's more supple, it'll stretch more. If your hands are super dry, when they stretch to a certain point, they're going to rip and tear. And as you can see, I've got a really nasty one right there. GHP is the culprit on that. Yeah, I need to probably do the extreme treatment on this, where I wear like a latex glove full of Vaseline all night, because a moist wound heals faster than a dry wound. So that's one way that you can heal a nasty cut or tear of your skin, is to coat your hand in Vaseline or Neosporin, wear a latex glove, wear it as long as you can. If you can sleep with it overnight without going crazy, that would probably do the trick and heal it almost overnight. But it's important that you care for your skin and don't let calluses get too big, because they're going to rip and tear. And I've done an event at a competition before where all these calluses here all got ripped off at once. It was terrible. Awful. I never want to go through that again. All right, one thing I forgot to mention in the initial recording was risks and safety of training grippers. Now, for the most part, grippers have the same inherent risk as any kind of weight training, but they're a little unique in the fact that the negative movement on a bench press or a squat, if you use a weight that's way too heavy, there's really not many ways that you can cheat that weight down for the on the negative. Maybe someone can help you, or you can use bands, but even then, that's not as dangerous as taking a gripper that is way too heavy for you, cheating it closed with two hands, or using an extended handle or your knees. and then trying to hold the negative. Now, some people like to train this way, and that's fine. You can do that. I'm not telling you not to. But this is really risky because this spring does not care about your anatomy at all. And so if you cheat the gripper close and you go to hold it and it's way too big and you somehow get this thing closed, it's going to open up, and it doesn't care if it rips tendons or ligaments or bones or skin or what. It can be really terrible. You can cripple yourself easily doing it that way. Some people like to be real macho about it. I don't give a fuck, whatever. You can do what you want. I'm just telling you the risks. Another way that I've seen people get hurt is that they'll take a gripper and they'll try to, like, the camera's not going to show it, but you can set a gripper like between your legs, and you can use your knees to help close it. And the reason you would do this if you're going to do something like a silver bullet. So the silver bullet is part of a gripper handle with a strap and then weight attached to it. It's usually 5 pounds. When I do train it, I use a little more than 5 pounds just to make it a little harder. And when I do the actual thing, it feels easier. But basically, silver bullet, you want to try to use the heaviest gripper possible just to get to parallel. And then you'll hold that weight up like this. Now, at a contest, if someone held a 3.5 for 10 minutes, holding the silver bullet for 2 seconds on a number 4 would beat that. So people like to try to set the 4 with their knees just enough that they can get the silver bullet and hold it for 2 seconds and then drop it, and then they win the contest. So I don't recommend doing that. You can do what you want. It's very risky. To me, it's not worth the risk of really injuring yourself and not being able to train for a long time. And you may never recover 100%. So keep that in mind. Be careful. Be safe. Be smart. Don't do anything stupid. Only my advice, not the truth, my advice is don't mess with grippers that you cannot set with just your 2 hands. If you can't set this thing to a point where you can close it, don't mess with it. And that right there will keep you safe and healthy for many years. So my advice, take it or leave it. Alright, so now that you know how grippers work, how to set them, how to train with them, how to care for them, how to care for your skin, how to recover from them, all those details, now we can talk about how do we prove how strong we are on them compared to other people. That's where certification comes in. So Ironmind has a certification where if you can demonstrate that you can close one of their grippers brand new out of the package from a credit card set on the number 3, the 3.5, or the 4, you'll get one of these cool, oh my god, certificate. Thank you. Brain fart. You'll get a cool certificate signed by Dr. Strawson, filled out with your name and the date. Once you can prove to them via video in the audition process that you can close the gripper, they'll send you one free of charge to do your certification on, and you get to keep the gripper. So you get a free gripper and a cool certificate and your name on the list of, you know, the strongest gripper guys on the, or gals on the planet. There need to be more women doing grippers. Hopefully that's going to change soon. I know a couple of them that are going to get into it, and maybe we'll see some crazy stuff done by the ladies who are already killing it in other areas of grip. So on the 3, I think there's 300 people who've certified the 3.5. There's 21, 22. Hopefully I'll be the next one. Shouldn't be long. I'm very close. And then on the number 4, since the rules changed that you had to do it from the credit card set, there's only been one person, and that was Myerscough, who I told you about. He did that a couple months ago. Incredible feat of strength. Probably one of the most impressive feats of strength until just a couple of weeks later when he certified on the GHP 10 which was a 256 RGC gripper that he closed from 38 millimeters, which is the craziest freaking thing I've ever seen in my life. Yep, so Carl's the only one who's closed the 4 from a credit card. He certified per Ironmind's rules. Other people have done it, but Carl's the only one who's done it under Ironmind's conditions. He's the only one who's closed the GHP 10 from 38 millimeters. Yeah, it's insane what he's done. And all his other world records, his axle deadlift record, 500 and some odd pounds, his 3-inch Saxon record, 300 pounds. Martins, Leachy's, he did 308 recently, so Carl will take it back soon, though, I'm sure. Yeah, he's one of the all-time greats, and he's unfortunately the measuring stick now, so I don't know how we measure up to that, but there's a guy in the works, though, Ivan Chuk, who's about to, hopefully soon, he's going to certify on the 4 as well. Very strong guy, really nice guy. Been cool getting to know him, and I look forward to what he's going to do on the 4 and maybe beyond. We'll see. Yes, the GHP certification, I don't know how that's going right now. I don't know if anyone's going to take it over. I don't know the future of that. But if you don't want to do credit card set, but you still want to try to certify on grippers, come join the grip board, because we're about to start doing the new Mash Monster ladder. The old one had 10 levels, Mash Monster 1 through 10. Only one person got to 9. I believe one person got to 9. 3 got to number 8, and then I don't remember how many offhand got to 7. But then the person who kind of ran and owned the grip board decided he was ready to move on, retire from that. He gave ownership of the grip board to Matt Cannon of Cannon PowerWorks, and they retired the Mash Monster ladder, and they auctioned off all the grippers. But there's going to be a new one, because Cannon is creating the new ladder with all new grippers. And the really unique thing about the Mash Monster ladder was that everybody closed the same gripper. So the same gripper on each level was sent all over the world and closed by the same people. And then the gripper was sent back, and everything was documented. The videos were judged by people on the grip board. Very cool process. Mash Monster doesn't require the credit card set. All it requires is that you prove that your set is wider than parallel. If you set it too deep with a deep set like this, it's not good. It's got to be wider than parallel. So that right there would have been a good Mash Monster set. And that's all you had to demonstrate. There was no setting block to slide between the handles, none of that. It was just visually on the video. If the judges could tell that it was wider than parallel, it was good. So I'm glad that the Mash Monster ladder is coming back. The grippers will be shipped internationally, so everyone can participate. There'll be more information come out about it soon. But you should join the grip board. That way you can be savvy to all that information as it comes out, and you can be prepared and know what it's going to take to certify. I think there's going to be lots of levels, so there'll be room for everybody to have fun and push themselves in their training to try to hit those levels and see how they stack up against everybody else on the planet. So certification's fun, but at the end of the day, the most important thing about training grippers is that you're having fun, you're getting stronger, and you're not really worried about what anyone else is doing. You're just doing it for you because you enjoy it, and it makes you, just improves your quality of life. I like knowing that my hands are super strong and I can handle anything that comes my way. I'll train these until my hands stop working. So I think that's everything that you would ever need to know about these things. This is a long video. Hopefully you got some information out of it. If I think of anything that I didn't cover here, I'll either make amendments or I'll edit the video before I post it if I think of something. But I think this is pretty extensive, and if not, I'll do another one in the future. So thanks for watching. Thanks for your support. Subscribe to the channel, and I look forward to showing you some really impressive stuff with grippers in the future. So take it easy.